Okay. All right. I've been delinquent. It's 6:01, so we're going to call this meeting to order just so we can watch the city manager run across the room. So we're going to call this regular session of the Atascadero City Council to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Pro Tem Darras. Thank you, and roll call, please.
Councilmember Funk.
Here.
Councilmember Newsom. Mayor Pro Tem Darras.
Here.
Mayor Bobo.
Here.
And Councilmember Peak is out today. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Peak is out of state, I think. Okay, all right. We will proceed then to our consent calendar, but first, welcome to anybody in our audience or those of you listening at home through one of the many avenues through which you can tune in. But we will begin with the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of items that are considered routine and non-controversial by city staff and will be acted on in a single motion by the city council unless otherwise requested by an individual council member for separate consideration. We will allow public comment on consent calendar items. So with that, I'll ask my colleagues, does any council member have any questions of staff or would like to pull an item? Okay, I actually do have a question regarding the cleanup of the property on Yerba. I drove by there and it seems as though old habits are hard to break and there's already a small accumulation of stuff in the driveway. So I wanted to ask the city attorney in that regard, you know, this has been cleaned up fairly inexpensively, I would say, for a government job, but still at expense to the homeowner. It'll go as a lien on their property tax. What, if anything, can we do to prevent a reoccurrence?
Well, first of all, I want to point out there's a public hearing on this that will be coming up. So we'll discuss in more depth what the efforts were, but.
I'm sorry, I thought it was on the consent calendar. Okay, then pardon me. We'll hold that question until, I was seeing it on the consent calendar. So yeah. Okay, all right, then we will proceed. Any member of the public wishing to comment on any item on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, we'll return it back to council and look for a motion.
Move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Funk, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Darras. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Funk.
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Darras.
Yes.
Mayor Bobo.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
Well, motion passes 4-0 with Councilmember Peak absent.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will proceed to updates from the city manager, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. First of all, happy New Year, 2026, right? I think 2026 had flying cars a long time ago and other things, but here we are. But I do want to share on behalf of the staff, we wish you a very happy New Year in the community. And a new year it will be. This will be the year that we tear down Fire Station 1, that we remodel Fire Station 2, begin construction, pouring a slab on a new 2-story Station 1, and renovate our police department to modernize it and provide great facilities for our public safety. This will be a year that we complete phase 2 of our El Camino Real project and have beautiful arches over our street downtown and a lit tunnel that will be safe for pedestrians. More paving, more and better events, believe it or not, are being planned. And we'll have a new general plan and zoning code that really moves our future of high quality jobs, great businesses, and really quality and more housing for our residents. So a lot of great things coming. And believe it or not, the city manager will have a high school graduate. So this is a big year, 2026. Okay, I have many things to share with you tonight. First and foremost, I want to remind the community that we have a new adventure play area at the zoo. I think the city council is having more fun than the children there in the photo on the left. I'm glad you were there in the rain. This is our new nature play area, and we kicked off with a ribbon cutting on New Year's Eve during our New Year's event. The Wild Journeys Play Zoo includes hands-on elements such as sandboxes where children can dig like a meerkat, a pretend zoo animal kitchen, a vet clinic, and outdoor play features that encourage exploration and imaginative learning. And so these are the kind of things we're seeing as we go to our next level zoo, having these experiences, having reasons for families to hang out, for young people to learn with their hands the importance of conservation and why you should care about animals and their environments. So we want to thank the sponsors who made this possible: Service Systems America, El Camino Veterinary Hospital, and the Central Coast Zoo Foundation. Thank you to them. Next, we have our 2026 backyard burn season is now open. So this is the official opening, January 12th. Permits are required. So please do not just put a bonfire in your front yard. They are free and they're available online. But we have a Before You Burn website that you should look at. And for more information, you can go to atascadero.org/fire. But burn season is open. If you need to have coffee with someone and you're finding that you're lonely, come to Coffee with a Planner. I mean, this is a great time. There is no better way to spend a morning than having coffee with our fabulous planners. We have a recommended topic that will be coming up. A couple months ago, we had introduced an ordinance on short-term rentals. And that's an important topic, I know, whether you can rent your home out, how we manage short-term rentals. We pulled that back because there was a lot of question from the community and a lot of feedback. And so we're in the process of garnering feedback. So we're going to do a few of these Coffee with the Planners. It's also a great time to ask about the general plan, other questions about remodeling your home or starting a business. But this specific one, we're starting to collect information and share information on short-term rentals. Regarding that, early February, we'll have a larger, more formal meeting and discussion collecting information on short-term rentals. We do not have an ordinance we're suggesting at this point in time. And then slated towards the end of February or early March, we'll come to the council with all of that information on short-term rentals and ask you again how you'd like to proceed with an ordinance based on all of that information. So we will not be bringing a final ordinance to you then, just collective information and getting your direction on that. So Coffee with a Planner, it's going to be a great time. All right, next, a good time. The Mother-Son Sweetheart Dance is, this is one of our newer programs, and you can see that it's January 30th and 31st. Tickets can only be purchased at the Colony Park Community Center from 9 to 5. Tickets are not available at the door, so please tell everyone you know that, because we always, it's sad to have people show up and they can't go and their kids dressed up. So this event is just about sold out. So mothers, get your ticket, because it will sell out very soon. So if you hear this and you're considering coming to the dance, it is $38 per couple for Atascadero residents. Please get your tickets now. Unfortunately, the next event, the Father-Daughter Sweetheart Dance, is sold out already. So on February 6th is sold out, Friday. So that is the 12 and under for the younger kids. The 13 and over. So if you have a daughter, these are suggested ages, by the way. So you could bring your child to either, but the music is different, but it's still a great time. Any age is welcome. February 7th will sell out probably this week. So if you want to bring your daughter, dads, go get your ticket tomorrow at the community center from 9 to 5 for $38 per couple, because we will not have extra tickets. None of the staff people have extra tickets for their friends or family. This will sell out, first come, first serve. So please, please get your ticket. It's a great time. Okay, Spring Youth T-Ball registration is open. So this is for 2026. Look at those pictures. Great. What a great sport. We do need coaches and sponsors. And so as always, we can only accommodate the young people that we have coaches and sponsors for. So the season runs from March 24th through May 21st. This is for 4.5 to 6-year-old children, and a coaches meeting will be on March 19th. So please, if you're interested, reach out to us for Spring Youth T-Ball. Also, spring season team registrations. These are for adults. Registration ends March 2nd, and adult social kickball ends March 23rd. So, by the way, social kickball, it's more social than kickball. And if you need something to do on a Wednesday night at Paloma Park, you go down and watch these adults play kickball, because it is pretty good. We might start selling tickets to watch. But anyway, those are the adult registrations now open. Just a few other announcements. The band concert series submission deadline is January 30th. So we always do get requests of how do I get into the summer concert series. This is it, and it closes January 30th. We always receive more applications than spaces. So please, if you are a band and want to participate, they're due, and they can be submitted via email or dropped off at the community center. If you are in vending or have a food truck or something else, we have a new weekend vending opportunity at Lake Park. That deadline is February 27th. So if you know someone, you can apply or send applications to events at atascadero.org or go to atascadero.org/news. We are trying a new program of having rotating food trucks near the zoo. This is to support people going to the zoo, staying, having things to eat there. And so this will be a really good opportunity that we're trying for our nice weather in the spring and summer. And finally, the Tamales Festival. We're starting to talk about that already. May 1st and 2nd will be the Tamale Festival, 10th annual, believe it or not. And we are now building interest for tamale vendors. So if you're interested, the form is available at visitatascadero.com/tamalefest. And space is limited. So this is another one, vendors first come, first serve. So if you hear this or know of a tamale vendor, tell them to get it in now. So that's what I have. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lewis. Does any member of the council have any questions on the city manager's report? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our next item on the agenda, which is community forum. Community forum is reserved for persons wanting to address the city council on any matter that is not on the agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing matters not on the agenda, so we cannot really get into a discussion on anything anybody brings up. But we can ask at our discretion staff to answer a quick question or perhaps contact an individual speaker. So speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to state your name at the podium. And if anybody would like to speak, please approach the podium now. And if anybody else would like to speak, please go ahead and line up so we don't have to, or folks across the room. So thank you. Go ahead and first speaker.
Good evening. I'm Jonna McGuire. I am a teacher at Paloma Creek High School. If you don't know Paloma Creek High School, it's the continuation school for Atascadero Unified. A couple months ago in September, I came with some students and we had 3 traffic requests. And so we are here to give an update. And I have fewer students because some have graduated. We kind of have a revolving door in continuation high school. So I brought the one that is barely hanging on. Isaac will leave us in a couple of weeks going to Wyoming to do mechanic school.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Isaac, and I just wanted to say thank you for the curb painting by the bus stop. It kind of helped us out to see better. And just kind of waiting on the other ones, but it's all good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you for bringing your concerns to our attention. Next speaker, Mr. Oslin.
Good evening, council and city staff. I appreciate the concern that I missed the last 2 meetings. Of course, holiday season, I did go to a holiday party, which I felt was probably a better choice than coming here to hear about an urgency ordinance that I'm disappointed in. Not that we did it, but that we wasted staff money because you have to come back. My understanding is in a year and make it a permanent deal. So we're doing it once again. So that's the first time I've seen our city not be fiscally responsible when the ground's wet and we're worried about fireworks, which I hate because my animals don't like them. But for the fire side, I don't know. I think it was a waste of time. Secondly, when it comes to the father-daughter and dances going on, I got in line at 9:05 in the morning when they went on sale. I was in the top 30 getting tickets, and I want to commend the staff this year. They were on the ball. They were cheery. They were making sure people knew to fill out the paperwork before they got back in line, and they did a fabulous job. So to the rec staff there that was there, congratulations. That was probably the best staff so far. So we have that. On another note, I haven't seen it on the agenda yet, so if it is, please correct me, but SlowCog pushing their 1% sales tax or whatever they're going to do. I really hope that this council says no and has the gumption to tell them no. A 10-year project just doesn't work for me, for my tax dollars being tied up.
Mr. Oslin, I'm going to interrupt you there because on the agenda this evening is a discussion, not a discussion, but a presentation.
Perfect. I'll talk afterwards. Thank you.
So you can speak. that.
Thank you. I thought I saw that, but I didn't see it in the short brief again. So thank you.
Right. It's not.
All right.
optional.
Well, good to be back, and I appreciate it. And I will always keep you guys on your toes. Whether I've been in your house or socialized with you or whatever, I will still call you out. And welcome to the new year. Thank you.
Well, thank you for speaking again. And in regards, I think Mr. Lewis regards the one question. I don't know if you could.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. I have no pleasure in correcting Mr. Oslin in public, but I will do so. He is not correct. That is with land use that you bring back an urgency ordinance. So this is a non-land use item. It is a permanent ordinance. So we were efficient. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Next speaker, please.
My name is Clyde Snyder, resident of Atascadero, South End, Paloma Park. So Phil, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not going to get into the full rant because our mayor did what any good administrator does. He connected me with the right person tonight, which is Ryan over there. I came to, and for Mr. Mayor and Mr. City Engineer, you can ignore my email that I sent last week. I had my question answered. I came to speak concerning the refill inlet pipe for Atascadero Lake. And given that typically we've been, 3-4 years ago, there's 2 back-to-back winters. After this kind of rain, it was overflowing. And so I've gotten some little bit of information about what was happening, and I didn't realize there's abundant level of planning and consideration to the project going on, which I'm happy to hear, and I wish you Godspeed with it and all the funding that you need to get it carried out. So anyways, thank you. And will you be at the coffee? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Anybody else wishing to speak in community forum? Okay, seeing no one approach, we will close community forum. We will move on to our next agenda item, which is a public hearing regarding our ADU ordinance update or accessory dwelling unit update. That'll be presented by Mr. Dunsmore, our Community Development Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I think we're in the same position as many other communities throughout the state of California, because I think most of us received a letter from Housing and Community Development telling us that our accessory dwelling unit ordinances needed work. And in fact, every other city in our county who I've conferred with have received similar letters. So that's why we're here tonight. We're here to just do some updates to our accessory dwelling unit code, primarily in response to the state. Now, normally we'd like to hold these code updates for a larger code update like what we're doing this year. But the state has told us we have to do this now or repeal our whole ordinance. At first, we were going to repeal the whole thing, but then we thought, you know what? Let's just take care of it. Let's get these things done. So here we are tonight, some really minor updates. Just as a reminder, we originally adopted our accessory dwelling unit ordinance way back in 2003. At that time, it was simply called secondary dwelling units. And it was in 2025, about a year ago, that we did the primary updates. And those are the updates we sent to HCD for their approval. It took them about 8 months to get back to us. So just a few months ago, they did finally review and get back to us and a lot of other local cities and wanted to see these adjustments. Now, as you've probably heard, state law is constantly evolving, constantly changing. Lots of Senate bills to try and stimulate housing production, make housing affordability. Some of these changes really are trying to go that way, but we're just racing to constantly keep up with these bills. So the current updates tonight really just reflect compliance with housing and community development, and a lot of it's just nuances and wording. But then again, there's also another Assembly Bill, 1154, that amends the junior ADU requirements. Now, fortunately, we've got our planning manager here tonight, and so she's going to get into the details, into the weeds, and probably a little more eloquently tell you about all these changes, especially on the multifamily side. So here's Kelly.
Good evening. So our first modification that we're making relates to multifamily accessory dwelling units. So our current code, we're a very infill-oriented city. We tried to convince the state that we should be building our sites out to full density or close to full density before we allow for ADUs, which can sometimes be units that do not pay development impact fees or have certain concessions that go along with them. The state disagreed, and so they are requiring that we amend our code to allow accessory dwelling units regardless of density that the site is built out to. Current language in state law does allow up to 8 detached ADUs, and it allows conversions of existing space to a number of units equal to 25% of the total units on site. That doesn't mean that a site can add 8 ADUs. If they have 1 unit, they only get 1 ADU. So there will still be land available for infill density and development, just a little bit different than we might have envisioned it. The second section that the state had some comments on was related to setbacks. We had some increased setbacks for larger accessory dwelling units. The state is holding to their minimum 4 foot regardless of the size of units. And so we are changing language related to that to reflect state law and state interpretation. As Phil mentioned, there was a new assembly bill that touched state density, state accessory dwelling unit code. The current law requires owner occupancy on lots with a junior accessory dwelling unit. This was because when the code was originally written, they kind of thought this would be a master bedroom in a house that you could have a small kitchenette in and turn into a unit, and you might share a restroom with the original house. They're finding less and less of that. They're finding that people don't want to share sanitation facilities in their homes, and so a lot of these units are completely separate units with their own facilities in them. And so the new state law removes that requirement for owner occupancy unless they do share a restroom with the primary unit. A couple other minor amendments as we went through our code, and our city attorney helped us out with that too, updating some state law references to make sure that everything is consistent. We are modifying the deed restriction section to remove that language. It's a little bit triggering at the state level, and we're making it very clear that this is just a deed notification or an agreement so that future owners of the property understand the limitations when they purchase the property. And we're adding clarification that constructing an ADU does not trigger fire sprinklers in a separate building on the site. When we did go to Planning Commission, some of the planning commissioners were new and were reading this ordinance for the first time. And when they came to the height section, they were concerned that because a lot of our parcels on the west side specifically are very sloped, that the minimum height that the state sets for ADUs would be not feasible to build an ADU on slope sites. And so they did recommend that the council look at some alternatives for some additional height for ADUs on sloped properties. One of the options that was thrown out was just to measure height from the shortest elevation, so the uphill side of the slope. That's a different methodology than we currently use in our code and could allow for some unforeseen consequences on the rear portion of the building in terms of impact to neighboring properties and aesthetics. So option B would be to just add 5 feet to the height that would maintain the current methodology for measuring height and would give that additional allowance. So if you were to agree with Planning Commission's recommendation for some additional height, there is some code text language that we've provided that can be added into the ordinance this evening. And that would just increase the height by 5 feet for detached ADUs that complies with the underlying setbacks. So these are not the 4 foot side and rear setback ADUs, and where the footprint of the unit is located on a slope of 20% or greater. So with that, Planning Commission did recommend that council adopt the ordinance before you this evening with modifications to allow for additional height on sloped parcels. As always, the council has some alternatives tonight. You can recommend additional modifications to the proposed code, and you can determine that some more information is needed, and we can refer the item back to staff and hear this item again at a later date. That does conclude our presentation.
Okay, all right.
And we're available for questions.
Question slot.
Luke cut me off. That was it.
All right, thank you. And I notice, Mr. Knight, that the speaker or the microphone seem particularly sensitive tonight, and I need to sit farther back. Did something change, or they seem loud? Okay. Got it. All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to start on my right with Councilmember Newsom and see if council members have questions.
I have no questions for staff.
Okay, Councilmember Funk.
Took a few tries on the microphone, yes. Could you just tell us if there are any major downsides to allowing the slope modification recommended by the Planning Commission as interpreted by staff?
There are not a lot of downsides to that. Adding additional height does create that allowance for buildings on sloped lots. It also allows for units to have roof form. When you have an extreme height limitation and you can't accommodate that, sometimes then people put flat roofs on their buildings in order to get that second story or the size unit that they're looking for. So generally an allowance like this would allow for that roof form and that neighborhood character to continue with what normal single family residences look like there.
Okay, thank you. And can you remind me what the restrictions are on ADU use? I know we're not changing that, but restrictions on ADUs in high fire risk areas, high and very high fire severity zones.
Sure. So the state has portions of state law that says as long as an ADU is constructed to current high fire building code standards, then they are allowed in those higher fire zones. We do have some restrictions in our code for areas that do not meet secondary egress standards. And we do limit those to just junior ADUs, and we don't allow detached or separated ADUs in those areas.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Daris.
Thank you. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and just follow up on the fire issue or the setbacks being to be allowed down to 4 feet. I see is an issue with the building code because anything less than 5 feet requires 1 hour construction, and it limits the amount of openings and the size of the openings and whatnot. And I'm wondering how that, I mean, it would seem to me that you can just simply say, no, you can't do it. But if you had an ADU that you're building that happens to be oriented in such a way that, say, the bedroom is on the property line side, the only window that you could put into it because of the orientation of the building is on that side, but because you're 4 feet, you can't have a window, therefore no egress, that becomes a problem. Can you just simply deny the ADU or the plan?
In the end, you've got to have your egress
Right.
for a bedroom. So essentially, we wouldn't deny it, but we'd require that 5-foot setback if there's going to be openings, or we'd require that opening to be fire rated, which you can do as well. So there are options there, but certainly, yes, that 4-foot is going to limit your openings and the design of that if you go to that 4-foot. But again, the 4-foot's only an option. And oftentimes what we see is just a corner of a building up against the setback or a portion, and it may not affect those openings. So there's all kinds of different parameters, but certainly a good point.
Okay, I just want to make, I mean, I'm sure that that's been being looked into. On the height measuring, are we picking one or the other on this? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, you are picking one or the other or coming up with any other alternative. Our recommendation would be the one that was on the previous slide and in your staff report, to keep our methodology for measuring height the same and just adding an additional 5 feet for those sloped parcels.
So
which would be option B.
Okay, so this is, wait, option A, adding 5 feet. Okay, option A is measured from the upslope. So that's what's currently we do, or?
Currently, we measure from the median, the average median average slope location. And so this isn't changing any of that methodology. It's just adding an additional 5 feet to account for the additional elevation needed to accommodate the slope.
Okay, so we're not measuring from the upslope at all. That's not used? Is
Correct.
that
That was mentioned by the Planning Commission, but we would recommend the other option.
Okay, and the reason I just want to clarify that is because I had a project where the house that was being the way, because of the lot, it extended out over a slope. It was probably much steeper than 30% even. But because that made the average, I mean, it made the house had to be really, really low. The neighbor's house, because the slope changed just, 100 feet over, was 20 feet higher because of where the average was on the neighbor's lot. So is there a way that it could be an option for even the builder or the owner to say, well, I want to measure from want, I want the height to be measured from one way, this way versus the other way. Is that a possibility or?
The recommendation would be to stay consistent in the code and not choose. I think if there was a choice and you wanted to be as flexible as possible, you would choose option A, and nobody would need to choose the other option at that point.
Okay, all right. I mean, I'm okay with with the height extension, I guess, or option A even. Okay. I just want to get clarified because I just know I've come across that. It's probably unusual, but it can really mess up a project if someone's building a house or even an ADU. Lastly, on the 8 units per, the 8 ADUs per, or 1 unit per, 180 unit per unit, up to 8 maximum. Now, I'm sure it would make a place very unrentable if they used up the entire parking lot to put an ADU to match every unit that was built, but that's something that somebody could do, right? And then essentially just tell everybody you got to park on the street.
In short, yes. However, the state code's written sort of odd. It basically says you don't have to provide replacement parking for the parking taken away, but then again, you still have to provide some parking for the ADU. And what it does is say, hey, you can build an ADU over parking, you can do certain things. It makes it more flexible, but you can't take away all of the parking and not provide anything. So there's still some parking requirement there. So there is limitations. The biggest thing with the 8 ADU thing that concerns us, since we're on that topic, is the fact that if I've got density for 16 units and I've got 8 units already built, I'm going to choose to build 8 ADUs instead of building 8 multifamily units because my ADUs are essentially going to be exempt from development impact fees. And they're going to have more flexible construction standards and parking standards.
But there isn't anything that we can do about that because that's state mandated, right?
Correct.
Okay, so basically, I'm just making a comment that there's nothing we can do about it.
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right, that's all I have. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. I've got several just quick questions. What is an urban dwelling unit? I gather it's not impacted by this, what we're discussing, but it is mentioned in the staff report.
So our urban dwelling unit is a phrase we use to distinguish the SB 9 units. The SB 9 that came out, it's been overwritten by another Senate bill since then, so we don't like using SB 9 because that fades away. But an urban dwelling unit and urban lot splits are those regulated by the state's original SB 9.
So not directly related to this?
Not
issue.
directly related. They are additional units allowed on single-family properties, but not with the same concessions that accessory dwelling units have.
Got it. And regarding the 4-foot setback, that is not affected by size of the lot. So somebody could have a 1-acre lot and decide to stick an ADU 4 feet from the neighbor's property
Correct.
line. And there's nothing we can
Correct.
do about that. Okay. And got it. In regards to this height issue, how does this compare with the height limitations for a primary house being built on a sloped lot?
Sure. So this still remains lower than a primary residence, which is 30 feet in our single-family zones. So this still is below that to make it a secondary looking unit.
So the idea being that an ADU has a lower height limitation, so it's not as, pronounced or obtrusive to the neighbors. Is that the premise?
Yes.
Okay, got it. And, okay, hold on here. And so in regards to, I'm thinking about out on the west side, when you have large acreage lots, you can do ADUs there if there's some criteria in here. But again, in that you cannot, add a setback or anything else. All of these other things apply as well, even parking limitations and things?
Yes, we can't modify the setback. We can't require additional parking spaces. On
Okay.
most of our larger lots, people don't build at 4 feet. We've had a couple on 2-acre lots, just based on buildable area, but generally they meet or exceed setbacks.
Well, I'm thinking of heavily sloped things like if you go along Los Altos and San Marcos where there's no place, they may have 5 acres, but there's no place to park because it drops off the road very rapidly. And so in terms of, particularly in this issue of, so if somebody has an 8-unit apartment complex, they can now build 8 ADUs on that property if it fits. And the same thing with somebody on a small lot. In order to build an ADU, it still has to physically fit there. Is there and I know that I think it's under 750 square feet, there's no development impact fees for these? Over that, there is, right?
Correct. They're proportional to the size of the primary unit. So they're reduced, not eliminated.
But I mean, up to 750,
Correct.
there's no development impact fees. And so, but in terms of people squeezing in, as many ADUs as possible, is there a minimum size? I mean, can somebody make a 200 square foot ADU or a 300 square
There's
foot
a
ADU?
minimum efficiency dwelling unit size in the building code that I think is around 240 to 270 square feet.
Okay, so I could say, I mean, if somebody was to try to do this on a multifamily property, they might do it with some very like efficient studio type of thing.
They could, yes.
Got it. And then also, we say that a detached ADU, this is on page 24 of the agenda packet, a detached EDU shall be required to be equipped with fire sprinklers unless the primary dwelling unit is not required. But I thought you mentioned that we couldn't require sprinklers in ADUs anymore.
We can't. So that state law section is written very interestingly, and we had some questions about it when ADU law first came out. It's been made very clear in their interpretations in their handbook that if the primary unit does not currently have sprinklers, then we cannot require sprinklers for the ADU.
But we're saying in this text that we do require it otherwise. If the
No,
primary
we're
unit has-
changing the text to clarify that building an ADU, we're not going to force the primary unit to put sprinklers in.
Okay, but we can require it in the ADU itself?
Only if the primary unit
Okay.
currently has sprinklers.
Already has them. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, go ahead. You have a follow-up question?
Yeah, actually, thank you, Mayor. It occurred to me when we're talking about all these ADUs that could potentially be built, if somebody has an 8-unit apartment house, they're allowed, if they can fit 8 ADUs, do each one of those ADUs have to be standalone, or can they be a cluster of ADUs in one building, like an apartment?
So the state handbook has made that clear as well. They do have to be detached from the primary structure, but they can all be clustered together and attached to each other,
Oh, they
just not the
can. So-
primary
Okay, so
structure.
it can be one separate building that has 8 ADUs within the building footprint.
Correct.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Thank you.
All right, with that, no further questions. We'll go out and see if we have any public comment on this item. If you'd like to speak, please approach the podium.
Good evening, Council. Jeff Oslin. I do have some questions. Does this require sewage, or can it be done with septic or not? Could you also answer the question on if you don't have to do impact fees, do you know if you still have to do school fees? The height that you guys were discussing has now confused me. So if my original house is 20 feet high, I could build an ADU at 32 feet high or something of that nature, or higher than the original house. So those are my regular questions. And then the other one is, how many dwelling units can you now technically put on a property? Is it 8 or is it still 4? What is it? And the setback at 4 feet is very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else in the public wishing to comment on this item? Okay, we'll bring it back to council, and if you wouldn't mind answering the questions Mr. Oslin raised. I think you may have addressed them. I know they're partially addressed in the staff report, but if you could address those very quickly.
Yes, I'll try and remember them. Hopefully you can help me if I forget. In terms of septic and sewer, those regulations are staying the same. So we do have restrictions on accessory dwelling units when you are on septic. Based on some health and safety code standards and studies that we've done, you need at least a half acre per unit. So that would include an ADU. So you would need at least 1 acre to do a primary unit and an accessory dwelling unit on septic. In terms of the height, this would be a height allowance. So if your primary house was only 20 feet tall or 18 feet tall, you could potentially build an ADU that is taller than your primary unit, but not taller than what the underlying zone would allow for a new primary unit, should you choose to build that. Oh, impact fees and school fees. I believe state law addresses school fees, and I believe they have some exemptions for school fees as well.
Exemption in the sense that school fees are still allowed to be charged?
Mm,
Or no? 'Cause, I mean, it is a,
I think there's a square footage limitation where they cannot be charged. I don't know that square footage, but I
Got
think
it.
it might be 500.
gotcha. All right, thank you. And Mr. Oslin, if you, regarding your question regarding sewers, on page 25 of the agenda, but, hold on. I think it's 25. No, I'm sorry. It's page 19 of the agenda packet does address that question. And in terms of your question of the number of units on a parcel, when we talk about the 8, we're talking about multifamily parcels. Where on multifamily parcels, we have to allow an ADU on a 1-for-1 basis, of what's already in the complex up to 8. So it doesn't mean you can build 8 ADUs on your, single family home lot. But to answer how many you can build, I would just get together because it changes all the time, it seems, with state law. So we hesitate to answer that here. All right, seeing no other member of the public approach, we'll bring it back to council for discussion and a motion. I think the key thing, before you make a motion, would be to address the height and what you would recommend including in your motion, and then if necessary, we'll have a discussion regarding height. So anybody?
I'm comfortable with the staff recommendation on, staff interpretation of the Planning Commission's recommendation with regard to allowing an extra 5 feet in height on slopes exceeding 20% or
Okay.
20% or more.
Anybody have any objection to that approach? Okay, seeing none, then would you like to make a motion just to
Sure. Do
approve?
we have any other discussion we need to have?
No, I'm
If
good.
I'll move approval of the of the item as recommended by staff with the inclusion of the language now shown on the screen, or that was previously shown on the screen, with regard to an additional 5 feet in height for slopes greater than or equal to 20%.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion by Councilmember Funk, second by Mayor Pro Tem Dares. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Funk,
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dares,
Yes.
Mayor Verbo.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0 with Councilmember Peak absent.
All right, thank you. Now we will move on to item G2, which is the 43 Yerba Avenue nuisance abatement cost recovery hearing that I called out of place. So I believe that our city attorney, Mr. Fleischman, will present this item.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Before you tonight is a draft resolution that confirms the abatement costs that the city incurred in the cleanup of the 4543 Yerba Avenue, and council would be thereby authorizing the placement of a lien and levy on the property taxes for that property. As council's aware, there was nuisance abatement procedures that have been engaged in over the past several months to clean up some of the outside debris at the home at 4543 Yerba Avenue, with some findings of public safety and health issues. That cleanup was done towards the end of the last year, and the amount of the cleanup, as the mayor correctly pointed out, was fairly nominal, given the amount of work that was done. I think there were 11 trailers filled with debris taken off to the dump by the workers on that. So under the city's nuisance abatement procedures, the city is required to conduct a public hearing to allow the property owner or any other interested party to contest the amount of the lien to be placed on the property. Given the amount involved, the property owner would have that right. So the recommendation after conducting the public hearing is to adopt the draft resolution confirming the abatement costs and authorizing the placement of a lien in the amount set forth in the staff report of $7,269.60 on the property tax rolls, and available for any questions if you have any.
All right, thank you. Does any member of the council have questions for the city attorney? Yeah, I have one, and that is regarding the amount, the lien being placed on the property, goes on their property tax rolls. Is that's not something they have to pay immediately, or what happens? I mean, ultimately, when the property is sold, we assume we would get it, but what's the steps there in terms of whether or not it's paid immediately or not?
So there's two potential avenues, well, three, I guess. The property owner could just pay them as they come due. They could go to default, and after, I believe it's 5 years, the property could be sold by the county for unpaid property taxes, of which this would be one. And then that would come to the city at that point. Or if the property's sold, it constitutes an encumbrance against the title that would have to be resolved through close of escrow.
Okay, so, I mean, it is essentially a current bill for the property owner to pay. It's not
Correct.
just something that hangs out there for.
Correct.
Got it. All right, thank you. And then my other question that I alluded to, I did drive by the property and did see that it looked like some things were starting to accumulate in front of the garage on the driveway. Not a lot, but clearly not what the after pictures showed here after cleanup. And obviously, you know, a situation like this, habits are hard to break. What though happens, I mean, if there's a reoccurrence or begins to be a reoccurrence, do we have to wait, and do the neighbors have to wait, you know, for it to get completely out of control before any action is taken? Or can there be some sort of intervention sooner in terms of code enforcement?
Well, there's certainly the code enforcement option if there are violations of the city's code. The reason we went through the nuisance abatement procedures the way we did is there was compelling impact to life safety and health from the amount of debris that was there. If it's simply clutter and there's no immediate public safety hazard, then it becomes a code enforcement issue. We can go in and do citations and so on. If there's a violation of the code. In extreme cases, as you're aware, there's also the potential for the appointment of a receiver. We would have to convince a court that there are no other possible ways or no other practical ways to abate the concerns that the city has with the property. I think in this particular case, a receivership might be a step too far, but if it gets to that point, that's certainly one of the tools that the city has.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, at this point, it's just clutter. You know, it's not a health and safety issue, but it is a bad sign, if you will. So, okay, with that, I want to open this up to the public for any comment. Anybody wishing to speak on this item, please approach the podium. Okay, seeing no one approach, we will return it to City Council for a motion or discussion.
I would express appreciation to the city attorney and to all the staff and their code enforcement officer for hanging in there with this and resolving a complicated and difficult issue with as much respect as possible for all concerned. And I would move staff's recommendation that the council adopt a draft resolution concerning abatement costs and authorizing the placement of a lien and levy of a special assessment to recover costs.
All second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Funk, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Daris. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Funk,
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Daris,
Yes.
Mayor Bourbeau.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0 with Councilmember Peak absent.
Okay, all right. With that, we will proceed to item H1, a management report regarding approval of the fiscal year 2025 annual road report. I believe that will be, I was going to say Mr. DeBar, but I see Mr. Betts taking his seat over there. So we'll turn it over to Public Works.
Actually, Deputy Director of Administrative Services, Cindy Chavez, is going to start.
Cindy's
this
here,
morning.
okay.
Hello, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. So this evening, we are pleased to present the fiscal year 2025 annual road report for Measure F14. So here is a brief overview of Measure F14. In July 2014, Council adopted Ordinance 581, which establishes the annual reporting requirements. As part of these requirements, the annual road report is prepared and presented to the Citizens Sales Tax Oversight Committee, or CSTOC. This report includes financial statements along with detailed revenue and expenditure information. The CSTOC did convene on December 10th, 2025 to review the annual road report and approve it coming to council. So retailers began collecting the 0.5% additional sales tax on April 1st, 2015. The Measure F14 sales tax has a 12-year life and will sunset on March 31st, 2027. Fortunately for the city, Measure L24 passed in November of 2024 by 70% of the voting public and will continue after the will start after the F14 expires. Total sales tax revenue for the period of July 2024 to June 2025 was a little under $3.3 million. Interest income was $104,282. 54,358 of it was income earned, and then the rest of that, the $49,000, was an accounting adjustment to a fair market value. In fiscal year 2025, the city invested just over $5.5 million across 5 separate projects, each currently at a different stage of development. So the 2024 pavement rehabilitation project was the one completed in fiscal year 2025. And as of June 30th, 2025, the balance was approximately $1.2 million. And then that concludes my part of the presentation. I will now turn it over to Mr. DeBar.
Thank you, Ms. Chavez. So the other part of this is we have a community roads brochure that we hand out. The main report has got a lot of detail, and one of the things we did from the first year we had this measure is prepare a brochure that's mailed to all the residents that kind of summarizes it. But this is our kind of a summary of what this measure has done for the city. It's pretty impressive. There's been over 50 centerline miles of road that have been paved. This represents 39% of all city maintained roads. We have 150 miles of city maintained roads. Almost $21.5 million spent. And these are neighborhood road repairs. These aren't the El Camino Real. These are the collector and local roads that, really didn't have a lot of attention spent on them or money available to fix them prior to this measure. Roads are considered excellent and good, that are considered with PCI excellent and good, have increased by 15%. And more than 80 neighborhood road segments have been repaired. So this map is in the brochure, and the brochure is included in your staff report. It has an attachment. You can see, it might be hard to see if folks out in the audience, but the road network is, the gray lines there, but the red roads are the roads that are planned for this upcoming construction season. The green roads are the roads that have been repaired over the last 10 years of this measure. So you can see they're all over town. And some of these roads are actually being, now that we repaired some of the first years, are actually going to get some surface treatments done just to keep them in good shape. So it's kind of nice to see this coming around again. And then the blue roads are other 2026 non-F14 road projects that are going to be pursued, primarily the traffic way project there from El Camino Real up through that industrial area. This is a brochure. The one side of it, this will be I guess a trifold, if you will, brochure. And it has that map, and then also kind of a summary on the bottom, what to expect in 2026. And then on the inside as well, it has a little background of the F14, which we've included similarly in the past. It also has, kind of that summary that I just mentioned, and kind of the financial statement in a snapshot. And then just some before, during, and after photos of that's actually Los Osos Road, which we did this summer. So with that, we can take any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. We'll start on my left with Mayor Pro Tem Daris. Any questions?
I don't have any questions. Great work though, by the way. I think our residents should be happy, especially if they see this map and the number of roads that's been taken care of. The percentage wise of all the roads and the amount of money that's being put into this, I think is great. And thankfully that we did get the additional with the L4, L24 continuation. So thank you for all your hard work on that.
Okay, I'm going to ask a couple questions just before I pass it down. The way on, you just mentioned that we're doing some resurfacing on things that had been previous projects, and I'm struck by Monterey Road. It doesn't seem like it's been very many years since we redid a huge chunk of Monterey Road, but I see we're doing resurfacing here from Graves Creek to San Anselmo. Am I correct? It just hasn't, we did a pretty thorough project on that not too long ago?
We did, and this would be, let me see, Monterey Court. We're actually doing Monterey Court, which is, you can see there on the what to expect in 2026 on the kind of lower right-hand panel of that.
Right, but it says Monterey Road from Graves Creek all the way to San Anselmo.
Oh, gotcha.
Almost a mile.
Yeah, so that section we had done before, and it's a surface treatment, so quite frequently with pavement management programs, after you do a major rehabilitation project or reconstruction, doing a surface treatment usually pops up in the 7 to 10 year range.
Okay.
So it's kind of due, and we want to keep that road in good repair.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Yes, I guess that makes sense when you need to do at least one treatment in not too many years after it's redone. Okay.
Yeah, somewhere in the 7 to 10 year range.
Can you go to the next page of the brochure?
Oh, sorry.
Actually, yeah, of the brochure. There we go, that one. So in here, in the middle of this page, we say 2025 pavement rehabilitation, 1.59 miles. And the report also notes that we're doing pavement resurfacing for 3.22 miles. And I'm wondering why we don't include that there, because if I'm a member of the public and I look at this and I see 1.59 miles, that's going to take about 100 years to,
right.
to treat everything. Versus when you add the stuff that's, the other projects, you go, okay, now we're down to, more of a 30-year time frame, which, that's how long a road's going to last. When you get on a 30-year path, you can see your way to the end. I mean, it won't be when we're here, but you can see your way to, we're going to be on top of this road thing. So I'm wondering on this brochure, why we don't also include reference to the resurface mileage as well, so that the public can see the total mileage that is being worked on in a year.
Right, and this past year, we had a 2025 resurfacing project, and resurfacing is like those surface treatment projects. We actually ended up delaying that until this summer because we didn't have a lot. This upcoming summer, we have a big, a large project coming with a lot of surface treatment. So we figured, hey, we can probably hold off on these roads for a year, get some economy of scale to include in that big project, and that'll bring all the square foot costs down quite a bit.
So what's listed in the report is the 2025 pavement resurfacing project didn't occur yet.
Correct.
And so
Well,
it's
that's
not
coming up
appropriate to include it in this report here.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for that answer then. Okay, Councilmember Funk, any questions?
I would add my plaudits to all the staff, financial and public works, for this excellent work and excellent summary. Did the Citizens Tax Oversight Committee, did they formally approve this project, and did they have any questions or concerns?
They did. They recommended that City Council approve this report. I don't recall any big items. I'm looking at Mr. Betts. And
great question, Councilmember Funk. The CSTOC members overwhelmingly approved the report. They made a couple comments that really struck staff in a positive way, and they said that since this measure was passed in 2014, today, it's really hard not to drive on a road that has been in some way, shape, or form improved, resealed, rehabilitated since it was passed in 2014. And they borrowed one of your infamous lines of promises made, promises kept. So out of those 9 members who resonate all across the community, they really are seeing it from their neighbors, their friends, their family, how important this measure is, and it's really making a positive impact for the community. And they were really thankful for being on the committee.
Great. And I would express my appreciation to all those members for that service. It's an important element of accountability for this, that folks are not just trusting the 5 of us up here, but also have other folks in the community who are taking a close look at this particular item and making sure we keep faith with the promises made to voters. Thank you.
Councilmember Newsom.
I always like the handy brochure to really see what we're accomplishing. So thank you for your hard work.
Yes, and I think that promises made, promises kept is what, and not, if you drive home wherever you live in the city, you're driving across some roads that have been improved or totally repaired with this measure, the funding from this measure. And I think that showed in the public's confidence by giving us a 70% vote to continue this practice and continue to improve roads. So I think if we didn't have the success you've already demonstrated, we would not have seen that result. Okay, we're going to turn it over and see if we have any public comment on this item. If anybody would like to speak on this item, please approach the podium.
Good evening, council and staff. Once again, Jeff Oslin. A couple of things. Yes, promises made, promises kept. It's a beautiful thing. These are neighborhood roads. They do increase our property values. So if you're living there trying to sell, good for you. If you're trying to buy, sorry. By having nice roads, it shows that we care about our city, and that's a very positive thing. And the chamber and our city, when we did this, was a very smart move, and we have managed our roads great. I'm happy to hear that we're going to do some servicing to extend life on all these expensive roads. That's always a very good thing. And more so on that you're waiting to your larger projects, so it will be cheaper to do these surface streets because the equipment and the labor will already be here. That is a really good move on Public Works. On the expense sheet, I think it's warranted to note that the revenue coming in is less than what the expenditure is, but that's because you start a project and don't necessarily finish it in the same fiscal year. So when you're spending approximately $4.5 million or $5 million, and you're only taking in 3.5, it's actually a carryover from the other year. So we're not outspending our dollars, and that's a very good thing to note. Thank you.
Okay, any other member of the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. And I would comment, if people read the report, not just the brochure, but the actual staff report, which breaks down the costs for all these different individual projects, you can see that road maintenance is an expensive thing. And some of these individual roads, if you happen to live on one of them, we might have spent $500,000, $1 million on your road. And it shows, A, it's expensive, but B, we're putting the money where our citizens get to use it. And they should, in a sense, my road was paved, and I looked at that number and thought, wow, that's quite a bit of money being expended on our road per household that's on this road. And so I hope everybody is grateful when their road is done. So with that, I'll bring it back to council for a motion. There are 2 items in the recommendation: one to approve the actual report, and the second to approve the distribution of the community road report.
I will move approval as recommended by staff.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Funk and a second by Councilmember Newsom. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Funk?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Daris?
Yes.
Mayor Bourbeau?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0 with Councilmember Peak absent.
Okay, with that, we will move on to item H2, which is a discussion or a presentation rather on the SLOCOG draft expenditure plan for a potential transportation sales tax measure. And looks like on this one, I'm going to get it right. Well, maybe I'm not. It says that it's going to be presented by Mr. DeBar or Mr. Betts.
I'll,
See someone else.
why don't I start on this one? Mr. Betts is available as well. So SLOCOG, for those that are unaware of SLOCOG, there are actual metropolitan planning organization. So any major urban area in the United States has one of these. Actually, they do transportation planning and funding, both for state and federal, for our countywide. They also provide funding for public transit services, highway and roadway improvements. And they also prepare, they've gotten involved in the housing needs allocation, arena numbers, and sustainable communities and strategies. They also, part of the funding, for instance, we received grants totaling $2.55 million towards our downtown El Camino project last year, and that was a game changer for us to be able to get that one across the finish line. SLOCOG is currently evaluating a potential sales tax measure. This would be a 0.5 cent countywide sales tax measure for transportation needs. This would be on the November 2026 ballot if everything went ahead with this. They were considering this sales tax measure last year, and I recall they came to one of the meetings, and other cities were looking at doing their own local sales tax measure, and they decided to hold off. This was also similar in nature to the one they pursued in 2020 or 2016, Measure J16, which actually failed just by around 450 votes, and that's a 2/3 measure that would be needed. They have drafted a transportation expenditure plan for review and comment, and at this time, I'd like to introduce Annie Bowski. Annie is with SLOCOG, and she's going to provide a presentation to go through this.
Good evening, Council, and thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. My name is Annie Bowski, and I am here to present a draft expenditure plan on behalf of SLOCOG. And basically what this is it accompanies a potential dedicated transportation tax measure for SLO County. So what we are proposing is a 0.5 cent for every dollar transportation tax to be voted on by voters in November 2026 to fix, repair, and update our transportation needs. And Nick gave a great introduction, but just a little bit additional background on SLOCOG for those who are not familiar with the agency. SLOCOG is the Regional Transportation Planning Agency for SLO County. So in short, SLOCOG connects communities by working with local jurisdictions to allocate state and federal funding for transportation, mainly generated by the gas tax. And as the Regional Transportation Agency, SLOCOG is comprised of the 7 cities along with the county unincorporated areas. And we actually have the largest governing body in all of SLO County. So we have a representative from each of the 7 cities, along with the 5 county supervisors, including Councilmember Newsom and Supervisor Moreno. And of course, it's no secret that our county's transportation needs are growing while our funding is continuing to dwindle. We can discuss what we don't have, but we can also talk about what we could fund. There are many regional interchanges in North County 101 that could definitely use our attention, but it's also the small scale community projects such as local road repairs, safe routes to school, public transit, and more that could also be funded. SLOCOG was proud to partner with Atascadero on the El Camino Real Safety and Parking Enhancement Project, and with locally controlled dedicated sales tax for transportation, projects like these can move faster and save both time and money. And looking at kind of our overall STIP, or the State Transportation Improvement Program. Over the past 8 years, we've had continued reduced funding, and so have our neighboring counties. But the difference between ourselves and our neighbors is that they have also a voter-approved dedicated transportation tax. So combined, Santa Cruz County, Monterey County, and Santa Barbara brought in over $100 million just in 2024 alone, where SlowCog brought in $0. And we could have also brought in, and instead of that 0 with a dedicated transportation tax, we could have brought in approximately $35 million to the region. And this is the slide that we really want to continue to focus on, is kind of the heart of what we're trying to say. So kind of taking a wider scope from just our neighbors, 89% of Californians within 25 counties have a dedicated voter-approved transportation tax. And especially just looking at our neighbors since 2016, they brought in a lot more than we have. So San Luis Obispo could have approximately brought in about $270 million, but it's not just about the money collected, it's about the money that can be leveraged at the state and federal level, which means we could have brought in an additional $400 million plus. So getting back to the expenditure plan and why we're all here this evening, after extensive countywide outreach, which included a community meeting in Atascadero, along with presentations at the Atascadero Rotary, along with the Atascadero Chamber, and many more throughout the county, SLOCAT has built a new draft plan and developed safeguards based on the feedback we received, which ensures flexibility, guarantees, and assurances. So starting off, there are 4 different elements in this plan. The first one is dedicated, out of the $35 million, dedicates 55% to local road repairs, safety, and improvements. And this is population-based, based on the 8 different jurisdictions, which means Atascadero would bring in about $2 million per year. This provides more local control and would add money to each jurisdiction's budget, and these non-prescriptive funds give more flexibility to residents, city staff, and council. And beyond the dedicated 55% that would go to the 8 different jurisdictions, about 40% would then be used for regional projects. This provides more local control, and one major change from the prior proposed expenditure plan and provisions is subregions. So instead of a single region-wide pot of funds, each subregion is assured its fair share of these funds. It's regional spending, but at a community level. Again, this pot is based upon population. There's 35% of people within the North County, which means 35% of the funds would go to fixing the regional needs of North County. And this slide basically gives you a pretty good breakdown of what each jurisdiction would receive. And in addition to the 95% that would go to jurisdictions and regional projects, we would dedicate an additional 4% to mobility needs of seniors and people with disabilities. As we know, this is a growing need within our county. And then additionally, it would just be at most 1% dedicated to administrative costs to produce such things as annual reports, share transparency, and make sure that we are sharing what we are doing with these funds. And like our neighbors have done, we would seek and win grants to double, even triple the collected tax. And so this slide really looks at kind of the local level of what Atascadero could do. So of course we looked at what the regional needs would be. So that includes interchange improvements such as Del Rio, Traffic Way, but also We recently went on a safety walk. I think it was in September with my colleague who's here, John D'Annunzio, and we observed the high school getting out, and that would be a great opportunity for a Safe Routes to School project to use with these funds. There are safety improvements such as flashing beacons, and I'm sure you guys can all name a bunch of things in your head as well. So finally, looking at what is additionally in this expenditure plan, and the one thing I always want to iterate to people is safeguards, safeguards, safeguards. So after extensive discussion with city staff, thank you for being so helpful with sharing all your feedback. We've made a few improvements and updates to this plan, and we're also here tonight to continue to get updates. But just a few of those include local expenditure reports. So our goal is to make reporting as simple as possible, and SLOCOG will create an annual report based on the input we received from local jurisdictions on how they have used the funds. We want to show we can deliver what was promised while making reporting streamlined, similar to SB1 reporting or even the local measure reporting that also needs to be done. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but we want to show what good things we've done if this measure were to pass by the voters. Additionally, the capital improvement program. This would be no different than what the jurisdictions already created, just with more funding to add more and with added local control. Additionally, the maintenance of efforts. Jurisdictions would demonstrate the maintenance Jurisdictions must demonstrate that they maintain their current level of the general fund. And this is just a quick look of what an additional ½ cent for every dollar sales tax would look like. So of course, it would not go to housing, it would not go toward medical, and it would not go toward groceries. But of course, saying you're buying a t-shirt, you might pay about 5 cents extra in tax if the t-shirt costs $30. We're very lucky here with our tourism economy. So if people are buying a wine that also costs $30, $40, they're paying potentially 5 to 10 extra cents, and that is actually staying within the county. And as far as residents go, we estimate that a person making about $60,000 per year would pay approximately $2.31 in an additional tax. So of course, what's next? At the February 4th SLOCOG board meeting, the board will have the opportunity to finalize the expenditure plan, and then through February and March, we will return to the cities for them to also finalize the plan. At this time, we're not asking for a yes or no, but just asking how we can make the plan better. And once again, we greatly appreciate the feedback city staff has already provided, and we're happy to continue to work on this document as it is at the moment a working document. And thank you so much. And at this time, happy to answer any additional questions.
All right, and thank you. I'm going to start on my right with Councilmember Newsom, who is our SLOCOG rep.
We put her through the ringer today. She had to go endure all of us at a workshop. Could you speak to what you learned from the workshop, and as you're presenting to us, some feedback from the workshop that was open to public, SLOCOG, as well as other organizations? Rand Butts was there too.
Definitely, yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. So SLOCOG, just for some background, had it was labeled as a special workshop, officially kind of an official, unofficial board meeting that was posted and of course open to the public. Public was invited along with all our committee members as well. And we had about 40 people there, and we did 3 different sessions we kind of refer to it as SLOCOG speed dating. Probably could use a little bit more work on the title, but that's kind of the best way to describe it. So we had this opportunity to hear from a few different groups. And one of the biggest challenges we've kind of had over time is how to approach if we should mention projects or not mention projects. So that was kind of some of the feedback we got as well. And we kind of can talk about potential projects we could do, but it's hard to kind of have a main line of exact projects. So that was kind of some of the feedback we got today. And one of the things that is separate from or kind of within the 8 jurisdictions, there's there's the unincorporated area that is included for that. And one of the discussions was also how to break down the approximate $8 million in funding out of the $35 million per year that would be given. Should it be one pot for the unincorporated areas, or should we break that down? And some additional thoughts were kind of how to market the project. So one of the biggest things that came out of it, and this is what we've seen consistently through our outreach, is the idea that we should be leveraging funds. And that's what is kind of, even for people, obviously a new tax isn't the most glamorous thing that people want to have in their life. But unfortunately, it is one of the only ways we can leverage funds at the state and local level. So that was kind of the other thing that was identified during the workshop as well.
Thank you. It was kind of nice to be on there to have an understanding of how long it's been since they've had a workshop as SLOCOG as a board, to have the understanding of how the projects, and most projects are taking somewhere from 10 to 16 years, and trying to get projects done on a more timely basis, and making sure every jurisdiction and sub-region has ideal projects that fit any potential grants coming forward. So we appreciate your staff being able to work through some of our ideas as we try to keep control on not only the regional, but also on the local aspect of how it impacts our communities.
Definitely, and thank you for that feedback, and we're happy to have more. It was a pretty fun time. So,
All right, thank you. Councilmember Funk.
Yes. Could you go back to that slide with that shows the funding, the potential funding? Keep going. Keep going. Showing the state pot. Yes, this. Okay. Isn't there, this shows that what we would get, the opportunity to get a particular state pot of funds matching. But isn't there a different pot of funds from which we do draw some funds?
so we as a county and as SLOCOG, we receive and distribute formula funds. So that's something we do get every single year, and you guys do get that as well as a city. But was it specifically what grants we go after? Is that what you're referring to? Because this is kind of more based on the idea of applying and getting grants. So it's not necessarily routine maintenance, but such projects as safe routes to school can get up to a 5-to-1 grant, or something such as a safety issue on the highway can also be a little bit more competitive. But the idea kind of, and please excuse me if I'm explaining this wrong, but the idea of this is that we at this point don't really have a lot of additional money to leverage at the state and federal level, which is kind of why we aren't getting the grants that other counties are getting.
Okay, check my understanding, but I believe I understood that there's one path of funding that's available to counties that are not considered self-help counties like ours, where we don't have this kind of tax, and that we would then shift over to a larger pot of money available to us that is for these self-help counties. Is that?
As of my understanding, there's no potential funding for counties that aren't self-help. We are able to compete with grants at some level, but it's just they expect us to put more money up for grants to get more money back to the region. So unfortunately, we are kind of losing out with the inability to put up larger funds to get more grants.
Councilmember, your understanding is largely correct. The state of California over the last several years has shifted limited transportation funds towards counties who are self-help counties who have money to match. And so that's what you're seeing there, is that we've lost out on roughly $430 million, while Santa Barbara's gotten $759 million in transportation funding that we wouldn't be able to access because we're not a self-help county. And so whether it's good policy or bad policy is up to the council to decide, but the state has definitely pushed down funding onto counties to help match and pay for their own transportation needs.
But we would continue to get the money that, or I should say, SLOCOG and the whole county would continue to get the money that it currently gets. But the premise being that these other counties also, because they have matching funds through their half-cent sales tax, they're achieving a hell of a lot more grants. We're getting basically none because we don't have the matching money to put up.
Right, we get the
But we
gas
wouldn't-
tax minimum and the state transportation assistance fund minimum and.
Right. But to go to Councilmember Funk's original question, we wouldn't stop getting the current pot of money
No.
that SlowCog gets. We would just be gaining access to grants that require matching funds.
Exactly. And if you could please go back one more slide, if you wouldn't mind. So this is funding we get from this, the STIP or the State Transportation Improvement Project. So if you look since 2016, these funds predominantly from SB1, which is the gas tax, people are using less and less gas tax or less and less gas, of course. So more and more, less and less money is being distributed to counties within California. So that's where we are losing out compared to other counties, and other counties have shifted and kind of gotten ahead with their dedicated transportation tax. But this is meant to represent the funding we receive, which is of course dwindled quite a bit over the years, which is why we're kind of in, unfortunately, this position that we are with not having the funding that we need to get more projects done.
Okay, thank you. I do have some additional questions and varying levels of importance. As you've seen with, earlier in this meeting, we have a very already well-established process with a local jurisdictional citizens committee that ensures maintenance of effort on transportation funding to keep our faith with our voters. Would it be possible to simply delegate that process rather than to the existing commissions and jurisdictions that have them, rather than having to create a whole countywide commission that frankly would have less credibility in our jurisdiction than the local one?
So basically, looking at the different pots of funding, kind of there's the 55%, which Atascadero would get approximately $2 million per year. As long as that is fully spent on transportation, we basically just need to show that SlowCog does not have control over that, but we just want to show, and there are some, of course, other elements to that, but just want to show basically that the city would be spending that money correctly, which is fully under the city's control. And then additionally, there's the regional pot of money, the 40%, which a portion of that would of course go to North County, and that would be overseen by the SlowCog board. So we would have a citizens committee, but that would just be to make sure people are spending or cities are spending the right amount of money, say maybe on road repairs or potentially putting it up for grants, so on and so forth. So if the citizens committee wouldn't be making specific decisions, it would be the SlowCog board every couple of years based on project needs and kind of the regional funding. And then with the money that goes strictly to the cities, that would be totally the city's decision, as long as they weren't using the money, say, and this is obviously very hypothetical, but for pickleball courts or something along those lines. So it would not be controlled by the SlowCog Citizens Committee. It would be controlled either locally at the jurisdictional level or potentially by the SlowCog board.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate you addressing the question of who gets to decide. That was another question of clarity that I had. But what I was talking about the maintenance of effort thing is specifically the reporting requirements. We took a lot of care in our ordinance to look at the efficiency of the process, because it was important to our taxpayers. We want to spend this money on roads, not accountants. And so I'm looking for where are you willing to look at opportunities to build on the work we've already done and not create that infrastructure at the countywide level where that infrastructure exists?
Yeah, definitely. And our goal is to basically roll in to what's already being done. So it would be a tiny bit of additional reporting, but we would want to align it similar to SB1 or what you are already doing for your measure funds. So we would expect some basic reporting, but we would try to make it as efficient as possible. And with the feedback from city staff, we've already kind of made those edits and are making those edits at this time in the expenditure plan.
If I may, Councilmember, and I appreciate you bringing that up. We still have some questions, but to SlowCog's credit, they have moved towards efficiency and towards not duplicating effort. I think your suggestion, though, of if a community has a sales tax for transportation and an oversight committee over that tax, there'd be a huge efficiency in that group self-certifying on the 55%.
Yeah.
I am going to make that recommendation to SLOCOG staff. I think we continue to have some concern about some of the review of prospective projects. That's your job as the city council to budget what projects are important. Review and audit committees are looking at arrears to make sure the money was spent correctly. And so we had some question about that too, but they have been helpful and listening. And there's a few things we still want to continue to do on the prospective, making reports more efficient, seeing in writing that our formats are enough. I appreciate what she said about the SB1 reporting. That's already a lot of work for administrative services. That should be enough. It's a very strict report to the state of California. And so parsing some of that information for this is what you said. We need more money and time spent on getting roads done than accounting and reports.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in here because I think that to be clear though, on page 83 of our report, and this is part of your plan, which looks like it says page 4, plan, requirements for eligible jurisdictions. And I think this is largely what Councilmember Funk is alluding to. It lists all of these requirements for eligible jurisdictions, mitigation fee program, circulation element, capital improvement program, pavement management plan. And there it specifically states a common format approved by the authority, an expenditure report, then time limits on use of net revenues, talking about a time limit when some of these projects are multi-year projects from inception to approval and then to construction. And so just want to be very clear, since this evening, you're going to come back and ask our approval for this plan to then be submitted out to the voters. But so this evening is our chance to comment on the plan. And so I just can't stress enough how important it is to us that these requirements be minimal, because as Councilmember Funk stated, the voters, when they're going to approve something, they just want to be assured that the money's really going to get spent on road projects. And this is just typical government though, that you got to have this report and that report and this element and this program and this plan. And it's like, for the most part, we already have those. And what really concerns, I think, our staff and us is that somebody's going to go, oh, well, that plan you've done every year, that's not good enough anymore. Now, you've got to add 6 pages and address these 25 additional questions. That's just a deal killer for us. I mean, this has got to be, you're never going to achieve the 1% administrative costs and overhead if you're requiring additional things like that. And I want to be really clear that we expect this to be very minimal, because we already basically do those things, and we can show our citizens and citizens throughout the county that we do, but not to require additional reports or specific formats that would require our staffs to do additional work.
Amen.
Definitely. And we completely understand that. And everything there is one nuance I'll discuss, but basically we're looking, say the circulation element, capital improvements program. We know these are things the cities already do. And that's basically what we want you guys to understand, is that that's what you would be giving us, is something that you're already doing with just additional revenue involved. And just the one nuance is a time limit for use of revenues. And we have updated this in the current document. But basically the nuance on that is, with the 55% or the $2 million that Atascadero would be receiving annually, that's totally yours. If you do want to save it, if you do want to compile some funding so you can put it up for a larger grant, that is totally something the city can do. It's more for the 40% regional projects. We understand that things do come up, but we do expect that money to be spent in a reasonable, timely manner. So that's kind of the difference between the two. If it is approved by the SLOCOG board for the 40% local infrastructure projects, that's something we would expect to be spent within the coming years in a project that's already kind of ready to go. So that's the difference between the two.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Funks, I'm sorry, did you have further questions?
That's okay. Yes. Thank you. To the end that the mayor was just discussing, on the next one of these pages of the staff report, you have language in there specifying that you're obligating SLOCOG staff to be reporting twice a year to every single city council and every single community advisory committee. Did I read that right? And do we really, is there any need for that?
That's something that's definitely open for discussion. The reason that's in there is we do pay a lot of mind to the CACs in the unincorporated areas, and I personally gone out to quite a bit of those different groups, and their challenge is that they never feel seen and they never feel heard. So that's why we're placing that in there. We did get this kind of comments and feedback from Mr. Betts this afternoon, and he noted that as well. And we were even just discussing it, nothing hard, nothing in ink yet, but that is one of the things we looked at. But the reason that that's in there is for more of the CACs. So that is a nuance we could discuss and change and talk about. And that would just basically be a kind of report from staff to the city council twice per year. But we understand that you guys only do that annually, and it is a bit of a nuance. But for now, the reason that that's in there is kind of for the CACs at this point.
Okay, there's a boatload of staff time in that requirement, and that's time that's not being spent fixing roads. And so I love the CACs too, but nobody presents to us twice a year. We don't have our ongoing issues on the staff doesn't present to us twice a year on anything. So streamline that one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And obviously, as mentioned, this is a working document. So yeah, thank you for that feedback. And we understand the reasoning of why you feel that way.
Okay, and our understanding is that that's the kind of feedback you're asking for today.
Exactly.
This
Yeah. And
is
I
our,
will bring that
our
back.
one chance to
Yes.
give some feedback on this thing to make sure it's that if it is going to be done, and if it is going to be approved by the voters, then that it's done properly. I would also comment the population basis, is that settled? Because that does seem to be a very solid basis upon which to make the distribution. For one thing, population is a number that everybody can understand and that can't really be gamed, and it's generated by the federal government rather than by any players here.
Yeah, and that's one thing. There's quite a few different options. You could go definitely by zip code. You could go by road miles, so on and so forth. And SLOCOG had multiple meetings with city managers over the past almost year. And that's just something that you can go any way, and someone may not benefit perfectly in any single way. But that was just what was decided for the easiest way for voters to understand. And additionally, just an easy way to divide things and show that you can kind of divide the money in that format.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Daris, any questions?
Yeah, just to follow up, you were talking about the regional corridor improvement pot of money, and that it could be sort of saved up to use so we can get matching grant funds to be able to do projects. Am I understanding that correctly?
So if you're referring to the 40%, yeah, that would be, there's quite a few different ways to do it. So this would be the funding that's received annually. And the SLOCOG board you would have to come with a project ready to go, say 101 improvements. And it would be approved by the SLOCOG board. And then with that, if it was decided, you would be able to save up money and then go for grants in that
Because
context.
the question I have on that was, well, first of all, the reasonable timely manner, what's reasonable time? And we've had projects that were much less cost than what we're talking about here. But, we needed just a little bit more, then we'd get a little bit more. And we kept chasing our tail with something that could have been funded or should have been funded much sooner. Every year that we can't do it, it just adds to the expense. But the corridor problems or fixes that we have are huge dollar amounts, and we're not going to be able, I don't see how we would do this. What's a timely manner? I think that's my concern.
We will work to define that a little bit more, but basically the idea would be that these these projects would be able to be approved or basically kind of funded and approved in that way. But that is a nuance, and we can discuss that further. So.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. It looks like page 5 of your plan, it says a performance assessment shall be conducted at least every 3 years to evaluate the efficiency, blah, 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 blah. By who? Who would perform that? Or is this one of these going to go out and pay some firm, a bunch of money to, look at this stuff every 3 years?
We discussed that, and it's more making it would basically be, we would be reporting annually. So all that would happen is we would combine those annual reports into a 3-year report just to show what we've been doing. And once again, that's a step to make things more efficient. But we would want to report out every 3 years as well.
Okay, well, that's good because, again, as Councilmember Funk tried to note, we're obviously concerned about our staff time, but we're concerned about your staff time, SLOCOG staff time too, and we want SLOCOG working on plans for projects, not reports. So I think there's a little bit of overkill in here in terms of the sensitivity that, oh boy, if we go out for this, the voters are really going to be concerned about accountability. The voters want to see projects, not reports, not get hung up too much on process. They want to see projects. And anything that just takes more staff time to generate more paper is not projects. So, okay, I have no further questions. What I'd like to do is open it up to members of the public to comment on this item. If any member of the public would like to speak, please approach the podium.
Good evening, Council. Jeff Oslin once again. About 5 years ago, I served on a steering committee on SLOCOG when it started. And this exception of adding a tax, as in the word steering, I was the only one that voted against it, by the way. And I see where the progress has come, but I have a lot of concerns. I think SLOCOG in itself does a lot of great things. We got some benefits up here, which is great. But if we needed to do an overpass and based on the money that we'd get on this pot, you're looking at a 10 to 15-year project and having to save money to redo an overpass. And our residents here in Atascadero will not tolerate that. That could be a detriment to some of our tax base. The things that concern me are we pay a gas tax. It goes up every year. We see less and less back to our county or back to our cities than what we used to get. And price of gas is slightly higher, so we should be getting more tax dollars, and we don't really get a lot from whatever it is, SB1 or whatever that is. With more electric vehicles on the streets, we're losing tax revenue there. It's a concern. My biggest concern with SLOCOG, even though I think this is a vast improvement from where they were a year ago when they approached it, I don't think this is defined well enough for our city, even though this is not a vote tonight and they're going to come back, to be a positive thing. How many more staff people are we going to have to hire for SLOCOG? How many more consultants are we going to have to hire? How many more people in Sacramento are we going to have to lobby to get funds? And my understanding on this pot of gold out there is as more people become, have the phrase wrong, self-help or whatever to get funds, the pot diminishes anyways. We're not getting our fair share as it is, and you keep seeing it go down the road, if you will. If you look at some of the things that Caltrans's priorities are, and they're supposed to be funding and doing things with our money and our roads, they're hiring people left and right to figure out if they can put a bike lane down the center of 101. And no, I'm not exaggerating. They've hired numerous people to figure out where they can put a bike lane. We're not in a spot here in SLO County where it's feasible to ride a bike from here in Atascadero to San Luis Obispo and back, or an electric bus that can't make it up the hill without charging when it gets back to San Miguel or Paso Robles from Arroyo Grande. So these are concerns that concern me if we're going to add a tax. And lastly, the county of San Luis Obispo changed their priorities, Board of Supervisors, from funding roads to making it like number 10 or 11 on their list. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good timing. I mean, it's finished right at 3 minutes. Excellent. So, all right. With that comment, we can bring it back to the council for discussion. Again, we are not voting on, the plan itself. Our purpose was to provide input, so we don't have a motion. I just want to allow each council member, if they wish to make any parting comments, to the SLOCOG representatives.
I do want to again emphasize the importance of efficiency in this process as we're efficiently achieving accountability. Note from my discussions with CACs out and about and listening to them, they want to see you fix their roads. They don't necessarily want to see your lovely faces. So just to fix the roads. That's a frustration in the rural areas where they feel like they're paying a lot more gas tax than city folks do because they have bigger vehicles. You can't pull a horse trailer with Prius. They want to see the results come back to them too in a process that's fair. And our folks just want to get our roads fixed also. And I do want to emphasize what Councilmember Darragh pointed out. We need the ability to accumulate projects. Big regional projects are going to take time. We're looking at, and I'm assuming that our interchanges in Atascadero on the 101 are probably going to wait until the 46 101 interchange has been done. That probably win out in priority. So we're going to have to wait a while, and it takes some time to build that up. Even if it's a shovel-ready project, that doesn't mean you're going to get the money from the state, or that somebody's not going to find some problem in the construction process that snags it up a little bit. So there needs to be reasonable latitude to have time to spend those funds so that we can get the big impacts that we do if this is going to proceed. Thank you.
No, I don't have anything. That's a good report, though. Thank you. But I think what Councilmember Funk was talking about is sure we have some serious intersection changes that need to be addressed, and they're super high dollar, and we're not going to be able to do that in just a couple of years. So, thank you.
Usually I do my committee reports at the end, but I think this is a good place to segue into it. It's always interesting to sit as a SLOCOG board member because you also understand that we as a local, well, we sit as a body for a regional, but we represent our local jurisdictions. And the nice thing that we did have is a SLOCOG board realized that there was some recommendations that we needed to do. Therefore, there was a workshop called in order to do that. It does require us to go back to our local jurisdictions and come back and say, what are those projects to make sure they are in the pipeline to streamline and make it more efficient and really bring our concerns to them, not just on the sales tax measure, but also on the regional transportation. The reports that we do get and the mandates that are done at both the federal and the state level are somewhat ridiculous in the fact that they're really short term, but we all know that projects are taking 10 years. So we talk about state and federal guidelines are taking 4 years of reporting. We know a project can take 10. So you're, halfway in it, you're having to re-report. So the work that is being generated, I don't want to say is automatically done at a local level. It's state and federal mandated. And all of us sit up here with that mass frustration of what it looks like to deal with wildfire mitigation and all of the same bureaucracy. So it was nice as a workshop participant, also as a board member, to really say, we are really efficient on our local level. How can you learn from us and how can we learn from you to streamline it? And to be that local voice was kind of nice because we are very frugal. We try not to spend as much money because we don't have it and we know that. And so we're really diligent with it. So it's nice to go both sides of that table and really pitch into those projects. And as I look at our funding cycle, SLOCOG will be reaching out to our jurisdictions. It will be important to make sure that we know that those items in the pipeline are good to go. Like I'm looking at something with a 2028 deadline or 2028 projected time frame with a certain dollar amount of today's value. That is going to be totally different down the line. So because it fits into one box and one shovel ready under 2 million in the current grant cycle on Congressman Panetta's site, what we're doing with the build out of other funding sources, how does this play into what do we need done for transportation? So it was insightful. I think they have a lot of work to do after today's meeting though. But we do appreciate you listening to everything we had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, I really appreciate, you taking this feedback. I know you've been accepting feedback from staff, from city managers and public works directors, et cetera. And it is important to building a plan that, the cities can support. And overall, so I hope, the commentary we provided has been helpful to you. Overall, though, I like the plan. I very much like the 55% of the funding going directly to the cities based on population. And then 40% going to regional projects is very good. And it's there, I think, where we're really going to see the potential for matching, that will enable us to put up matching funds and receive those state and federal grants. And I think from a pure business proposition standpoint, nobody likes to pay an additional tax. The question is always, as a taxpayer, what are you getting out of it? And I think as we saw with our own local measure, the answer is, well, you're getting, you're getting roads improvement that you can see, you can visibly see and ride over. And with this plan, what I like is that we just in the 55% are going to essentially see in Atascadero, if this were to pass, we would see essentially all of what our citizens pay in sales tax, just in the allocation back to the city. And so the rest is gravy. So the plan itself, I am very pleased with the allocations. I think they're fair and they're reasonable, and they're potentially beneficial to Atascadero. So we'll see you, I guess, late in February or March, that you'll be back to present the formal plan here for March. You'll be back here in March to present the formal plan, and we'll actually have a further discussion and vote at that time. All right, well, thank you again, and thank you, everybody. That concludes our discussion on that item. So we will move on to council announcements and committee reports. And I'll start on my left with Mayor Pro Tem Daris.
Not much to report other than, let's see, APCD's meeting next week. Capsto's meeting this Thursday, but I might not be able to make that meeting. Obviously a quiet December, so I don't have anything to report from that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Funk.
Yes, the Atascadero Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency met on December 17th. It was a routine meeting, and we got our consulting work and plan lined up for the coming year to continue the reporting and moving along in ensuring the sustainability of our basin, which is in good shape. I did take that occasion in the informational reporting at the end to alert them to some of the things we're starting to hear from the Water Quality Control Board with regard to how they're looking at how we manage particularly the salt requirement, which they, anyway, with it, just to give them a heads up that a more regional approach is likely to come, and the way that moves forward is not clear to me. So there we are. The Homeless Services Oversight Council Executive Committee met on the 15th, and we were delegated responsibility to do some allocations for public safety, permanent supportive housing services grants. Or it's the continuum of care funding, but it's the ongoing pot of money that's used to keep the data reporting and to do the services that keep people housed who have complex needs, who are disabled or have mental health issues. TEMA manages most of that money, and PSH. There are some issues with regard to very large changes in the federal grant requirements that are being challenged in court because they directly contravene the guidance of Congress. So staff is trying to keep that moving along as smoothly as we can, and to keep as much funding as we can going to that important work that is highly successful. About a 95% rate of keeping people in that housing once they get in. and it's only used for people who have serious needs. And last, I would mention that that every 2 years, there's what's called the point-in-time count of unhoused persons, and Mayor Bourbeau is nodding because he's been part of that. That is going to be occurring on January 27th. So this is the last week if you want to sign up to volunteer. If you're an early morning person or can drink a lot of coffee, it starts at 5:30 a.m. But we do want to both count and interview the folks who are unhoused in our community. And there will be multiple teams in Atascadero that day. So sign up and volunteer. There's a virtual training on Saturday. You too can be part of this important process. Thank you.
Councilmember Newsom.
I already gave my slow cog and RTA. We've had a meeting last week, a meeting today, so I have nothing else to report.
Got it. Thank you. And likewise, a slow December. There was no Integrated Waste Management Authority meeting, but we will be meeting tomorrow. And there was no mayor's meeting. We will be meeting in Morro Bay on Friday. I did want to make my colleagues aware, though I did receive an email. The City Selection Committee will be meeting on February 25th. And I'll mention it now because one of the items to be considered is an appointment to LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission. Because Councilmember Gregory from Paso, his term expired on December 29th. And so I believe this is the appointment that belongs to the North County. So if any of my colleagues are potentially interested, or staff, if we could make sure that Councilmember Peak is aware of that opportunity as well, please can possibly consider doing that. Not that any of you need an additional committee assignment, but I will say LAFCO does not meet all that often. So it is so I just want to mention that in that meeting again, February 25th, but there will be an application process that one can look at the LAFCO website for. So, okay, that's it. Now, does any individual determinations from council? Okay, seeing none, I believe we are adjourned. Thank you.